I'm about to break so many NDAs just posting here. There's something really fucky going on though, and people are dead, so something needs to happen. I'm a freelance video editor. A few weeks ago I got a call about an indie production working on one of those Big Brother style game shows. This time the twist was that the guests were going to be in a haunted house, unbeknownst to them. Look, I'm not here to debate the morality or ethics of that. The producers said nobody would be in danger and they'd be the ones pulling the strings as ghosts. Yeah, don't think they knew what they were getting into. Whatever, I needed the money and took the job. Now, I don't know if I'll even make it through the next week. The house in question was massive, with room enough for everyone to maintain their space. 8 main rooms, a huge kitchen, a separate dining room, a separate den and foyer, along with a pool, hot tub combo out back. Honestly, would be a dope house to live in, except for the ritual suicides and subsequent mass murders that happened in the 70s. That kind of throws off the vibe, no matter how low the real estate price. From the research I did before taking the job, this house was home to some major tech mogul back in the 90s, was going to compete with Gates and Jobs, and had all kinds of genius going for him. Then one day he just broke, said he found the truth of the world and was going to break us all out of the manufactured reality we live in. Dude wrote a ton of bullshit about finding some precursor to humanity. From everything he said, it just sounded like he was a few years early to the Matrix. Either way, he took it the Jonestown route and offed his 30 or so followers in a ritual, setting them up in a damn firing limbo line, with each one of them shooting another in the head to dwindle their numbers. Dark shit, and apparently the mogul Shane Pike was never seen again. Nobody knows if he got taken in or maybe legitimately ascended, but odds are he's dead. Everything started simple enough. The contestants, 6 of them, were in one haunted house. I and the producers, Saul and Shayna, would alternate shifts in a nearby trailer, watching a live feed from inside the house at all times. From there, we would mark moments in the tape, saving them to compile into the show after it was done. Not the strangest gig I've taken to pay the rent. The first few days were pretty normal, to be honest. Everyone settled in. Frank, Indy, Carol, Megan, Pete, and Jacob. All are in their late 20s to mid-30s and of course, attractive to ensure drama pops off. Don't fix what ain't broken, as they say. So far, they were all amicable, not really getting on each other's nerves yet. That was until the 3rd night when everything went weird. It was maybe 11 at night, pitch dark outside with no moonlight to spare, and almost everyone in the house was asleep. Except Pete, who was making his way into the kitchen for something to eat. I was on watch with the huge camera display up in front of me in at least 30 different angles to see every bit of their lives. Think they only stopped short of putting cameras in the bathrooms because of privacy concerns. Pete made it down to the kitchen okay, rummaging around cabinets for a minute before finally getting to the fridge. The camera I was watching from faced the refrigerator directly from above, so I could only see him from behind when he opened it. Static started humming over the audio. He could hear it too, turning away from the fridge and shouting at something nearby. The static grew louder, a constant hum in the audio feed, as if it was about to completely cut out. He reached into the fridge after deciding whatever was there wasn't worth worrying about, and that's when it went wrong. The camera glitched for a moment, a figure popping up right next to Pete, almost as tall as him, but contorted in odd ways. Too many edges and angles to be a real person, but it looked like there were parts of them stretching outward. The static roared to thunder and the figure disappeared. If Pete noticed it, he didn't even get a chance to make a sound. The camera glitched again before something dragged him away, straight through the door back into the hallway before he could scream. As quickly as it happened, it was over. The kitchen was still, with the door swinging slowly shut on shelves of food inside. I almost immediately lost my shit, switching between every camera I could to see if he just ran somewhere else or I was hallucinating. Nope. Pete was nowhere, not a trace of him in the whole house. Poof, gone. It was like he went through a whole other doorway because he never even appeared on the hallway camera. Just a black square of darkness in the doorway. Naturally, I called Saul because one of our damn contestants disappeared from thin air, and he was over in a few minutes. This motherfucker told me he would handle it. I just needed sleep. I know what I saw, Saul, and it wasn't because I was tired. Nevertheless, he kicked me for the night, telling me to get some rest. Didn't have much choice then, so I went back to the hotel. When I came back in the morning, Saul told me he had found Pete, though he would no longer be taking part in the contest, citing what Saul said as a family emergency. In hindsight, yeah, it sounds fishy. At the time, I wasn't going to argue though. They told me there was network interest for the show, so that might mean I could have a steady gig, and I wasn't about to throw that away over a glitched camera. He announced to the rest of the house and had them do their journals for the day with feelings on them. All the basic, oh, hope he's okay stuff, you know. Things got weirder that night though, and I don't think they believed it for long. Everyone gathered for dinner that night, sitting together in the dining room. Drinks were being poured and everyone was talking, laughing, shooting the shit about life outside the house. Indy was the first to mention strange happenings. Hey, so I was in the bathroom last night and the lights suddenly flickered really bad. Was one of you playing a prank on me? She asked the entire table. Nobody came forward. Everyone just looked at each other unsure. I mean, I'm not mad. It's just when the lights flickered, I got one of those weird horror movie experiences. It looked like someone was just standing beside me. There was a big burst of static too. I got goosebumps. Everyone else still maintained their innocence, telling her that there wasn't anything to worry about. From the dining room camera, I could see the entire table and into the kitchen through the doorway. If I hadn't been paying attention already, I would have noticed someone walking through the door into the room. Just a note, for being a relatively low-budget seeming production, Saul and Shina had sprung for the good cameras, and I mean good. These things were giving 8K resolution, and the monitors were able to match it. That's the part that made me concerned about what happened next. The figure walking in was like God used the least amount of polygons available, only a basic demo of a person. Even worse, there weren't any actual features on the face, just a smiling, ear-to-ear grin with wide eyes that looked as if it was pressed on flat. I felt my skin grow cold as it stood in the doorway, staying there for almost 15 seconds surveying the room. I almost fell out of the chair when it turned to me, face suddenly extending on its neck toward the camera. Apparently, the others in the house took notice of it too, because everyone jumped up screaming. My screen glitched out again, the horrible face briefly popping up in front of me, not just obscuring everything else in the camera, but almost popping through my screen. Everyone in the dining room was freaking out, all standing as Carol ran out of the room screaming. Indy was pale, literally having just seen a ghost, and Frank looked ready to fight. Meanwhile, I'm shaking trying to figure out what the hell I just saw. It took me a moment to realize the audio feed was coming in again, with Frank shouting for answers to whoever was listening. All the noise must have woken Shanna in the next room. She came out, asking what was the matter and what the loud noise was. If she understood anything I was babbling about, more power to her, but eventually she said she would just go speak to the guests herself, assuring me it was one of the scares they had set up. All part of the act, supposedly. I don't buy it. It's been a few days since without much incident, but I think things are only going to get worse. I've seen a few weird things here and there, glitched pixels moving in some of the cameras, and occasional static when there shouldn't be any interference. Yesterday, one of the couches scooted across the floor around midnight. If these were scares set up by producers, they didn't bother making me aware. I'll keep a running update if anything happens. Right now, I'm choosing to believe it's just their setup, hopefully all fake. Something's gnawing at me though, telling me that there's something else behind how casual they are about this. There's no way something popping out of my screen was just some kind of glitch. Nope, 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 nope. This place is fucked. And I mean capital F, fucked. My career is probably done if I make it out of here. Jacob died today, for sure died. I saw it happen. He had been staying in his room since the dining room incident, almost catatonic after seeing it. Can't say I blamed him, considering the damn thing almost got to me too over the monitor. The others were trying to check on him, but he didn't really want anything to do with the rest. At some point, he turned on the TV, though Saul and Shauna only allowed a couple of streaming services for entertainment. Look, I'm not one to judge someone's taste in movies or anything, and I don't want to speak ill of the dead. That said, the Spawn movie from the 90s was a hell of a choice. Maybe it was a comfort thing, who knows. He didn't make it far before the television started glitching out, screen pixelating. I was watching the other camera at the moment, but it caught my eye when the pixelation started because it was extending out of the TV. Spawn was still playing, yet this thing was somehow moving through the actual space in front of the television. There wasn't even a way to tell what the hell it was, just pixelation in the air, constantly changing colors like a digital stream. I was fixated, wanting to shout and wake him up, but frozen in my seat, blood running cold. It felt like this thing was aware of me, like I was being watched as some kind of dare. I couldn't shake the chill that was settling over me, making me shake from the cold. It kept extending from the television, stopping right before the bed as Jacob stared in total horror. He must have been as frozen as I was, sitting with his mouth open, but no scream coming out. Crawling backward, pressing himself into the wall wasn't enough to save him. The pixels stopped for a moment before leaping forward, immediately toward him. I saw his face open in shock as it pierced his chest, lifting him against the wall as it rose up. He grabbed at it, only clawing at the glimmering air in front of him. The tendril suddenly retreated back into the television, snapping Jacob back with it. I saw his body fold in half backward as it hit the edge of the television, the tendril still pulling on him. Over the mics I could hear his spine snapping, probably ending any pain he might have felt if he was still alive. As the tendril moved back from the television, yanking him back one more time to make sure everything came through. Indy must have heard the bump because she ran in out of breath from the next room over. What she found was an empty room, shitty movie still playing on the television, with no trace that anyone was there otherwise. The sheets were bunched up like they had been left behind that morning in a rush, but otherwise, everything was in place. Indy stood in front of the television, back to it, looking at the bed where Jacob once was. I was breathless, unsure of what to do while watching things go down. Neither Saul nor Shayna were here right now either, so there was nobody in the room with me to tell to go help. I was afraid that if I looked away from the camera something else would happen. Whatever happened didn't wait until I looked away though. Indy was grabbed by the neck and yanked backwards through the television in a somehow less violent manner than Jacob. She was gone in seconds, nothing to mark she was there. 3 contestants were now gone, with no clue where the fuck they may have gone. I called Saul freaking out, and of course, it went to his damn voicemail. Okay, try Shauna next. Nothing. Fucking voicemail again, except this time I got an inbox full message with it. I looked up from my phone, trying to see if anything had changed on the screen. Another figure was standing in the room now. Not one I recognized though. Someone dressed a few decades out of style, tall, with messy brown hair falling over thick glasses. He turned to me, lifting a finger to his lips in a hush sign, looking directly through the camera at me. Pixelation hit again and he disappeared, totally gone with nothing left. Shanna finally called me back then, asking what was so frantic that I called both of them, super bitchy in hindsight. Then she told me that I'm freaking out over nothing, again, emphasizing that they're in control of everything and will handle any issues that happen. She reminded me that they have pre-planned scares that will mess with the guests, but that's not reassuring at all. When I tried pressing her to give me a list of scares so I could at least be prepared, she said she didn't want me spoiling it for any of the contestants left. This has to be a prank on me, right? One of those hidden camera reality shows, but on some meta level where I'm the joke. I don't like it, even if it's not some cruel joke. There's no way the sound I heard his back make was fake. I finally made the decision. Not going to lie, I was kind of expecting the outcome, but it is what it is, I guess. I called the police and told them I had just witnessed a possible murder and they were on their way. Took probably 2 hours for them to get there. Even then, gotta love the police system in America. When they finally got there, Saul had arrived around the same time. He intercepted them before I even realized they were there, pulling up to the main house and waiting at the doorway like a goddamn realtor ready to make the sale. He assured the cops that there was nothing wrong, showed them the filming permits, and laughed it off saying that maybe they would make it on television. That seemed to get one of them pretty excited, saying his wife would be so jealous to hear. Then they got back in the squad car and left. Not a thing was done. Nobody in the house was even aware of what had happened. Saul came up to the editing trailer after they left, a look of disappointment on his face, like I was a kid caught sneaking out. This jackass gave me a legitimate, "I'm not mad, just disappointed" speech and told me I could go for the day. He would take over. I want to leave. I want to get the hell out of this place. I don't like anything that's going on. There's this constant feeling of cold on my skin that won't go away, like I've got permanent goosebumps. Hair standing on end as if I was in the middle of a storm of static. Nothing made it go away. I can't leave though. I can't let the 3 left in there meet the same fate. I'm going to do something about it, but I'll have to wait until Saul and Shanna are gone to do anything. If I get out of this, I'll update Wish Me Luck. Fuck that house. Fuck Saul and Shanna. Fuck this job. I'm going back to a damn call center. I have no more fucks to give about editing. I formed a plan last night laying in my hotel room. Honestly, was just waiting to hear that Saul and Shanna canceled my stay since it was on their dime. Thankfully, things seemed to go on just like normal. Guess they needed me more than they wanted me gone. Shanna switched out when I got there, just giving me a glare when I came in before she left. Guess she had heard what happened. Whatever, it made things easier for me since she left so quickly. Unfortunately, that's where the easy parts would stop. I was planning to wait for a few minutes and watch cameras, just to make sure neither of them were coming back. Maybe I was trying to steel my nerves too, keeping a watchful eye over the remaining 3 guests while contemplating my next move. They obviously were on edge at this point, even just from their body language. Must have figured out something fucky was going on at this point. At one point, Frank walked outside, producing a cig from his pocket and lighting up by the pool. It was only a moment before the entire pool began shimmering like moonlight hitting it in waves. A dark figure began rising out of the water. Frank didn't notice right away, only turning after whatever the figure was had risen above the surface in the middle of the pool. I was out of the trailer and on the ground before I realized I had moved. All I could think was that he wouldn't be there by the time I got to the door, but I still had to try, right? The dark figure that was rising from the pool looked formless, soaked as if wearing long robes, water sliding from it. The air around it was pixelating, distorting itself on the screen. I feared what I would find when I got there. Nobody opened the door as I furiously knocked, so I took it into my own hands, running around the back toward the pool area. The small fence had a rusted latch thankfully, or running into it full force probably would have hurt a lot more, though I wasn't feeling much pain as I took in the sight before me. The entire pool was bubbling, the water putting off massive amounts of steam as it boiled. Frank's back was still to it, so I'm assuming he hadn't noticed yet. It took only seconds for everything to go straight to hell. The figure rising from the pool snapped a tendril forward, almost making the burning water come alive. It must have still been incredibly hot, because Frank screamed out in pain as it wrapped around his torso. He was jerked back so hard the force of it made something snap inside him. Barely a scream came out as his flesh was boiled, sloughing from his limbs in the pixelating water. No, I screamed before I realized, angry at myself that I was too slow to save him. That meant Megan and Carol were the only ones left, and I had no idea where they were. That was the least of my worries though, because the pool was still boiling, water starting to splash out from the ferocity of the frothing, steaming Frank stew. His body was bloated and red now, his blood mixing into the water as it boiled. In the middle of the pool, above him, the form began pulsating, taking shape into the same terror that had taken the others. The glitch began moving toward me, gliding over the surface of the water as it kept absorbing stray parts of Frank's flesh, now pixelating in the air as it floated toward the terror. It was becoming more clear with every bit that attached, taking a more human-like shape. The smiling, painted-on face stared at me as it moved forward, hunger in the static eyes. It was only by dumb luck that I fell backwards out of the gate, scrambling back out of the gate. I rushed as fast as I could back around to the front of the house, still determined to get the women out alive if I could. Instead of waiting for someone to open the door though, I picked up one of the decorative stones lining the garden, hurling it with all my might through one of the large windows out front. The hell? A voice from inside, Megan's I think, shouted faintly as the glass shattered into dangerous blades. Even the sting of glass cutting my arms and legs as I climbed through faded into the background, my heart beating with adrenaline. Both women were standing in the living room area, staring at me as I fell to the ground on the other side. Carol was holding lamp for self-defense. Who the hell are you? I couldn't really blame them for being scared. I know I looked like a fucking madman breaking into this house. Maybe they thought it was a part of the show. Likely they had no idea at this point that this wasn't really a show. You need to leave, now. I managed to gasp out, blood running down my arm in warm trails thanks to the glass. Frank is gone. It's on its way, please. It was too late. I could see the glitch moving in from behind them, passing right through the doorway like it wasn't there, leaving scorch marks around it like an electrical fire. Megan went stiff, falling over like she was hit by a taser. Before she could even hit the ground, the glitch pulled her in, absorbing her without a sound. It turned to Carol, frozen until the last moment when she jumped away from it, running for the door. She burst through, myself following close to escape from the damned thing. I didn't make it 3 steps off the porch before I felt cold steel pressing against my forehead, hard. Saul stood in front of me, a pistol in hand aimed at my head. Nearby Carol was in the same situation, held up by Shayna. She was crying, hands over her head, begging Shayna for her life. I told you not to interfere. All you had to do was watch the footage, Saul said, putting his finger to the trigger. You were supposed to help us show the world. You're killing people, man. What the hell is this place? What are you? I was shaking. I've never been in a situation like this, staring death down the barrel. I see why people piss themselves in fear now, because it almost happened. We're being good disciples, he said simply, motioning with the gun for us to go back inside. Go to the pool. We'll hand you over ourselves. I can't wait to see him again, Shanna said, glee in her voice. She kicked Carol forward, making her fall on the porch. Despite that, she still scrambled up, working her way toward the back door. The glitch was nowhere to be seen, with only the burn marks on the door to show it was ever there. When we finally got out to the pool, Frank's cooked body was floating on the surface, eyes melting and flesh exposed on his face. It looked like other parts of his body still under the water were just bone at this point, muscle barely hanging on. The water began boiling again, bubbles building from the bottom in anticipation. I noticed the temperature and jet control for the hot tub nearby, flickering with the number display constantly changing, finally zeroing out with an error. I had an idea, I just wasn't sure if it would work. Saul and Shayna came in behind us, dropping their guns down to their sides as we stood behind the rolling water. Saul was maybe 5 feet from me, close to the temp control. I could see the figure forming in the middle of the pool again, rising from under the water. I'm sorry it took so long, Father, Shanna said, looking at the silhouette. We have the last of them, and an extra just in case. They have to let you go now. The figure from the pool began to arise, another face forming in it. Though I couldn't quite tell, it looked like the same figure that made the shush sign to me yesterday, but it was emerging from the glitch as it moved closer. The water was boiling even hotter now, steam rising fast from the surface. I readied myself. Oh my faithful, the figure said, gliding forward as the glitch still enveloped him. Thank you for returning. Saul and Shayna were smiling, waiting for him to reach the solid ground and anoint them. It was quite the shock they got when instead the glitch stabbed 2 tendrils out, the boiling water quickly piercing them through the stomach, scalding them from the inside out. Their mouths were open in horror as his face came closer, flashing and pixelating between human and the low-res, drawn-on texture from the glitch. I didn't ask you to though, the figure said, malice now dripping from his voice as it distorted with static. I quite like it on the other side. It's quiet, solitary. I would rather not leave. They began to break down, Saul and Shanna decaying into red pixels in the air that flew toward the glitch. I took my chance while they were otherwise distracted, making a dive for Saul's gun that was now on the ground. The glitch only looked at me, the textured face showing an eerie smile. You don't have to be violent. "That won't work on me anyway now," he said, still looking at the gun in my hand. I aimed it at the wall, right in the direction of the control monitor. He must have recognized what I was doing. "Oh, go ahead. Like I said, I don't really want to leave." It whipped Saul and Shanna back into the glitch, tendrils retracting quickly to absorb them into the digitized, glitching body. I pulled the trigger, hitting the monitor right on the screen, making a small electrical fire start. As power faded from the box, the glitch began breaking down, water slowing as the temperature cooled. He was just smiling as his face disappeared in a storm of pixels, digitizing into thin air. Carol was still sobbing on the ground as I threw the gun away, causing it to land in the pool. I made my way over, offering a hand to help her up. The fire was starting to grow nearby, spreading along the wall. As both of us walked from the house, still shaking from the ordeal, flames began to lick inside, from the living area to the other rooms, enveloping everything in moments. We left into the night, letting the funeral pyre burn itself into cinders as fire truck lights lit up the distance.